My name is Renata Osei Morrison. I am 41 years old, and they asked me for $200,000. Not quietly, not privately, not in a phone call between adults who understood what they were asking and who they were asking it from. At a family dinner. A Sunday in November. 12 people around a table. My mother-in-law's dining room. The good china. The centerpiece she only brought out for occasions she considered significant. Candles. The whole production. And halfway through the main course, before the plates were cleared, before dessert, before anyone had finished their wine, my brother-in-law Cortland stood up, cleared his throat, and made a speech about family, about loyalty, about what it means to have resources and use them to lift the people around you, about the business opportunity that was right there, fully formed, just needing one injection of capital to become everything it was supposed to be. $200,000. From me. The woman they had spent 6 years calling a gold digger. In church. At family dinners. To their neighbors. To their friends. To anyone who had ever asked how their son and brother was doing. Was now the person they needed $200,000 from. I sat at that table and I did not move. I did not look at my husband Kwame. I did not look at Cortland. I did not look at my mother-in-law Cecilia, who was looking at the centerpiece. Because Cecilia always looked at something that was not a person when she was waiting to see what a person would do. I looked at my water glass, and I thought about the folder. The dark green folder. Legal size. In the bottom drawer of my home office desk. 44 items. 6 years. Every documented instance of a word I did not earn and a reputation I did not deserve. And I thought, they have no idea what is in that drawer. Before we go any further, if you are new here, please take a second to like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And drop a comment telling me where you are watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one. Welcome to the family ledger. Now let me take you back to the beginning. My name before I married was Renata Osei. I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C. Diverse, fast. The kind of place where ambition was the baseline and everyone's parents had a plan for them before they were old enough to have one for themselves. My father, Kofi, emigrated from Ghana in 1981 with an engineering degree and $40, and the particular certainty of a man who has decided that certainty is the only thing he can afford to carry. He built a civil engineering consultancy over 22 years. Small, precise. The kind of firm that does not make headlines but builds the infrastructure that holds headlines up. My mother, Abena, was a pediatric nurse for 30 years. She worked nights for the first 15, while my father built the firm. While I did my homework at the kitchen table and learned what it looked like when two people decided that what they were building was worth the cost of building it. I grew up understanding two things very clearly. 1. Nothing is given to you. 2. Document everything. My father kept files on every project, every contract, every invoice, every change order. When I was 12, he sat me down at the kitchen table and showed me a binder and said, "Renata, the world will not remember what you did, only what you can prove you did. Keep the records." I kept the records. I graduated from Howard University with a degree in finance. Magna cum laude. Went directly into investment banking in D.C. The kind of environment that requires more from you than you thought you had and then asks for more still. I gave it. By 26. I was an associate. By 29. A vice president. By 32. I left the bank and joined a private equity firm as a principal, a smaller team. More responsibility. The kind of role where your name is on the decision and not just the analysis. I was good at my job. I was very good at my job. And I was earning the kind of money that, in certain rooms, in certain families, with certain assumptions already in place, made people uncomfortable. I met Kwame Morrison at a Howard alumni event in D.C. in the fall of my 31st year. He was an architect, tall, quiet, the kind of man who listens before he speaks and means everything he says when he finally does. He had grown up in Charlotte, North Carolina, his father a pastor, his mother Cecilia a retired elementary school principal, a family with deep roots and strong opinions, and a very clear picture of what Kwame's life was supposed to look like. We dated for 16 months. He introduced me to his family at Thanksgiving of our first year. Cecilia opened the door in Charlotte and looked at me. Once. The particular look of a woman taking a measurement, and smiled and said, "Welcome. We have heard so much about you." She had heard enough. By Christmas, I would learn what she had done with what she heard. Kwame's sister Nadine called me on a Tuesday in January. We had met once, briefly, at Thanksgiving. She was warm, quick, the kind of woman who fills a room with energy and means it genuinely. I had liked her immediately. She did not call to be warm. "Renata," she said, carefully, the particular carefulness of someone delivering information they wish they did not have. "I want you to know, because I think you should, that Mama has been talking." I said, "About what?" "About you," she said. "About Kwame." "About the situation," I said. "What situation?" A pause. "She is telling people," Nadine said, "that she is concerned. That Kwame is. She says he is being swept up. That you are very successful, and Kwame is. He is doing well, but he is not. And she is worried about what you want from him." I sat very still. "She used the words gold digger?" I said. Nadine did not answer immediately, which was an answer. "Not in those exact words," she said finally. "But, yes, that is the shape of it." I thanked her. I hung up. I sat at my desk in my D.C. apartment for a long time. Gold digger. I was a principal at a private equity firm. I had spent 9 years in investment banking before that. I managed a portfolio that had returned 22% over 3 years. My compensation package, including carry, was more than Kwame's architecture salary by a margin that would have made the accusation not just wrong, but specifically, precisely, numerically, wrong. Cecilia did not know that. She had not asked. She had looked at her son, whom she loved, and at a woman she did not know, and assembled a story from the ingredients of her concern, and had begun telling it. In Charlotte. In the way that matriarchs tell things. Through the family. Through the church. Through the network of people who trust them enough to receive a story without checking it. I opened my desk drawer. I found a dark green legal folder I had bought for a client deliverable that had wrapped up. I wrote Nadine's name at the top of a clean sheet of paper. Date, January. Exact content of the call as reported. Cecilia's implied accusation. Red pen. Item 1. My father had told me at 12. Keep the records. I kept them. Kwame proposed 8 months later. On a Saturday morning. In our apartment. Over coffee. The way proposals happen between two people who have already decided and are simply making it official. He placed a ring on the table and said, "I want to build a life with you. I have known it since month 3. I am asking now." I said yes. I called my mother from the kitchen. She cried. The warm, uncomplicated kind. My father got on the line. Asked if Kwame was a man of integrity. I said yes. He said, "That is enough."
and asked when we were thinking of coming to Silver Spring for dinner. Then Kwame called Cecilia. I could hear the call from the other room. Her response lasted 4 minutes. Kwame's side of the conversation was mostly, "Yes, ma'am. I understand. Yes, ma'am. I've thought about it. Yes, ma'am." He came back to the kitchen and set his phone on the counter and looked at me. "She needs time," he said. "How much time?" I said. He did not answer, which meant no defined amount, which meant indefinitely, which meant she was not going to make this easy. Item 2. Engagement call. Cecilia, 4 minutes. Kwame's report. Needs time. No timeline given. Red pen. Dated. We got married the following April. A ceremony in Silver Spring. My parents' church. 80 guests. My father walked me down the aisle in a kente cloth tie he had worn at his own wedding 36 years earlier. My mother cried before the music started. Kwame cried when I walked in, which was the only moment of the entire day I came close to losing my composure. Cecilia attended. She wore an expression of careful pleasantness, the kind that is performed rather than felt. And she hugged me at the reception with both arms and said, "Welcome to the family, Renata," in a voice that said something slightly different underneath. I filed it. Not literally. Not yet. But the way I had been filing things since January. Item 3. Wedding day. Cecilia's welcome. Documented. Tone noted. Red pen. Dated. The gold digger accusation reached its first full audience at Cortland's birthday dinner 3 months after the wedding. I know this because Nadine called me the following Monday. Cortland. Kwame's older brother, 38. A contractor who had been working on the same residential development project for 4 years, had organized a birthday dinner at a restaurant in Charlotte. Kwame and I had attended. I had bought Cortland a bottle of bourbon he had mentioned once. Remembered because I remember things. And a gift card to a hardware store I had researched because I pay attention. Cortland had thanked me with the particular warmth of a man who has already decided how he feels about you, and is temporarily suspending it for bourbon. After Kwame and I left, Nadine had stayed, and she had heard Cecilia tell Cortland's wife Dana, "I just worry about what she thinks this family is." Kwame has always been so trusting. She is very ambitious. These career women, they are always looking for something. These career women. I was a principal at a private equity firm. I was looking for a portfolio return of 22% and a husband who read books and meant what he said. I was not looking for anything Kwame Morrison could provide that I could not provide for myself. Financially, professionally, materially. But Cecilia did not know that. She had not asked. Item 5. Cortland birthday dinner. Cecilia to Dana. Exact words. These career women. Always looking for something. Reported by Nadine. Date. Red pen. Year 2. The pattern established itself completely. Every family gathering followed the same structure. Cecilia was warm to Kwame, warm to Cortland, warm to Dana, warm to the cousins and the church friends and the neighbors who came in and out of her house with the ease of people who had always been welcome there. To me, she was careful, not cold, not openly hostile. Careful. The particular carefulness of a woman who has decided something about you and is performing the opposite of that decision in public. She asked about my work once. In 2 years, once. At Easter. Year 2. She asked, "How is the job going, Renata?" I told her. Concisely. A new fund we were closing. A deal I was leading. The carry structure I had negotiated. She nodded, said, "That sounds very demanding," and turned to ask Cortland about the development project. I filed it. Item 9. Easter. Year 2. Single work inquiry. Response received. Redirected to Cortland within 40 seconds. Pattern confirmed. Red pen. Dated. Nadine remained my source. Not because she was disloyal to her family. Because she had decided, early, which side of the truth she stood on. She called me every month or two. Not to gossip. To inform. The way a good person informs someone who is being talked about in rooms they are not present in. By the end of year 2, the folder had 16 items. By the end of year 3, 26. By the end of year 4, 34. None of them dramatic. None of them explosive. All of them. The quiet accumulation of a story being told in rooms I was not in. By a woman who had decided the story before she knew any of the facts, and had been maintaining it, consistently, in the way that matriarchs maintain things, through repetition and proximity and the authority of the family center. Cecilia was the family center, and I was the thing on the edge of it, tolerated, assessed, permanently under the suspicion of a woman who had never once asked me a direct question about my life. Year 4. My firm closed a fund, $340 million. 3 years of work. My name on the closing documents as principal. I remember the day it closed, a Friday in September. The team gathered in the conference room. The managing partner opened champagne, said things about the work and the team, and specifically about my contribution to the raise that I will not repeat here because I was raised not to repeat compliments but to file them. I went home and made dinner. I did not call Cecilia. I called my father. He listened to the whole thing. The fund size, the close, the carry, the 3 years it had taken. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Renata, your grandmother would have understood exactly what this means." That was the highest compliment Kofi Osei had ever paid me. I wrote it down, not in the folder. In a separate notebook I kept for things that belonged to the other category. The receipts of kindness, equally important, differently filed. 3 weeks after the fund close, Nadine called. "Renata, I need to tell you something. Mama knows about the fund," I said. "How?" "Cortland looked it up," she said. "He found the SEC filing, the fund size. He told Mama," I said. "Okay." She did not react the way I expected. Nadine said carefully. She got very quiet. And then she asked Cortland, "Does Kwame know how much she manages?" And Cortland said, "Of course he does." And she said, "Then why does he not have more to show for it?" I sat with that for a moment. Why does he not have more to show for it? As if my income were a resource Kwame was entitled to draw from, and his failure to have extracted more from it was a management problem on his part. As if I were a fund, and Kwame were a poorly performing investor. Item 31. Cecilia's response to fund close. Via Nadine via Cortland. Exact words. Why does he not have more to show for it? Implication. My income belongs to Kwame. Or, by extension, the family. Red pen. Dated. I closed the folder. Put it back in the drawer. Made a note on the post-it inside the cover. The ask is coming. Be ready. Year 5. Cortland's development project fell apart. Not dramatically. Incrementally. The way projects fall apart when the financing is structured too thinly and the timeline extends beyond what the thin financing can hold. A contractor dispute. A permit delay. A lender who called the note when the project missed its milestone. Cortland lost the project. He did not lose everything. He had other work. Smaller jobs. But the development project had been the thing he had been building toward for 4 years. The project that was supposed to establish him. And its collapse hit him in the way that collapses hit people who have invested more than money in something. I felt for him. Genuinely. I know what it costs to build something. And I know what it costs when the building does not hold. Nadine called in month 2 after the collapse. Renata. Mama is very upset about Portland. She is. She has been asking questions. I said, what kind of questions? About your firm, Nadine said. About how capital works. About private investment. She asked me if I thought you could help Cortland get back on his feet. I said, in what capacity? A pause. She used the word investment, Nadine said. I picked up my red pen. Item 38. Cecilia inquiry via Nadine. Word investment used in context of Cortland's project failure. Capital structure questions asked. Ask approaching. Date. Red pen. The Sunday dinner was 3 weeks later, November. Charlotte. The Good China. The centerpiece. 12 people. The whole production. I had known it was coming since item 38. I'd added items 39 through 44 in the 3 weeks between Nadine's call and the dinner. The secondary inquiries. The questions Cecilia had asked Kwame, which Kwame had relayed to me with the careful honesty of a man who understood that I needed the complete picture even when the picture was uncomfortable. Kwame knew about the folder by year 3. I had shown it to him the way I had shown Douglas, the way I had shown Marcus, the way the women in these stories always show their husbands. Because the men worth marrying are the men who can look at the documentation and understand why it exists without needing to be taught. He had looked at it for a long time. Then he had said, I am sorry she has made this necessary. That was all. That was enough. At the Sunday dinner, I sat to Kwame's left, my customary seat, and I watched Cecilia move through the meal with the precision of a woman who had organized this evening down to the moment the ask would land. The main course. The second round of wine. The moment when everyone was full enough to be comfortable and not so full as to be sleepy. And then Cortland stood up. The speech lasted 6 minutes. I timed it on my watch. The way I time presentations. Because timing is documentation and documentation is discipline. 6 minutes about family. About loyalty. About resources and opportunity and the particular moral weight of having more than you need when the people around you need more than they have. He named the amount at minute 4. $200,000. He framed it as an investment, a loan at favorable terms, a family participation in a new project, smaller than the last one, better structured. A sure thing this time. He looked at me when he said it. Not at Kwame. At me. Because everyone at that table, including Cortland, knew exactly whose money he was talking about. I looked at my water glass. I thought about the folder. 44 items, 6 years. Every gold digger implication, every these career women, every why does he not have more to show for it, every redirected conversation, every unanswered question, every Sunday dinner where I had been assessed and found wanting by a woman who had never once checked the numbers. I thought about my father at the kitchen table. 12 years old. Keep the records. I thought about 44 red pen entries in a dark green folder in the bottom drawer of my home office desk. And then I set down my water glass. And I spoke. I did not raise my voice. I want to be clear about that. The way I have been clear in every story I have told. Because the power is in the level voice and not the raised one. Because a raised voice gives the room permission to dismiss you. And a level voice gives the room no choice but to hear you. I said. Cortland, thank you for sharing that. Before I respond, I would like to share something with the table. Cecilia looked up from the centerpiece. I reached into my bag. The bag I had brought specifically because it was large enough. And I set the folder on the table. Dark green. Legal size. 2.5 inches thick. 12 people looked at it. This is a documentation file, I said. I have kept it for 6 years. It has 44 items, each one labeled, each one dated, each one a record of something that was said about me. in this family, in rooms I was not present in. That was relayed to me by someone who believed I deserved to know. The table was very quiet. I opened the folder to item 1. January. Year 1. 4 months after Kwame introduced me to this family. A phone call, during which I was informed that Cecilia had expressed concern that I was, and I'm using the exact reported words, sweeping Kwame up, and that my ambition combined with Kwame's trusting nature was something to be worried about. I placed the notes on the table. Cecilia's hands were flat on the tablecloth. Item 2. Our engagement. Cecilia's response. 4 minutes. Needs time. No timeline given. Item by item. Year by year. The birthday dinner. The Easter redirect. The These Career Women. The Why Does He Not Have More to Show for It? By item 15. Cortland had sat down. By item 26. Dana was looking at the tablecloth. By item 31. Cecilia 1. Cecilia's response to the fun close. Why does he not have more to show for it? I heard someone at the table draw a breath. I moved to the final tab. Item 38 through 44. The past 3 weeks. The questions Cecilia asked about private investment. The word investment used in the context of Cortland's project. The inquiries made to Kwame about my firm's capital structure, the organization of this dinner. I closed the folder. The rings did not click. It was a legal folder. But the sound of it closing was its own kind of punctuation. I looked at Cortland. You asked me for $200,000, I said. I want you to understand who you asked. I reached into the folder one more time. A single sheet. Printed. Clean. The way my father printed things? No unnecessary formatting. Just the numbers. In rows. Sourced and dated. This is my compensation history. Year 1 through year 6 of this marriage. Base salary. Bonus. Carry distributions. Total. Each year. Sourced to my tax returns, which Kwame has always had access to, because we file jointly, and I do not keep financial secrets from my husband. I set it on the table next to the folder. Year 1. I earned $340,000. Year 2. $410,000. Year 3. $487,000. Year 4. $612,000. The year the fund closed. Year 5. $389,000. Year 6. I placed my finger on the 6-year total. $2,758,000 in 6 years. From the woman this family has spent 6 years calling a gold digger. The table was completely silent. Cecilia was looking at the compensation sheet. Not at the folder. Not at me. At the numbers. At 6 years of a story. Assembled in rows. That made the story impossible to tell in any room that contained facts. I picked up my water glass. Took a sip. Set it down. I am not going to invest $200,000 in Cortland's new project, I said. Not because I cannot afford it. Not because I do not wish Cortland well. I do. But because the moment I write that check, this family will believe that the 6 years before it did not happen, that the gold digger accusation was just concern, and the concern was just love, and the love justifies the ask. And I will have taught everyone at this table that my money is available to this family regardless of how this family treats the person it belongs to. I looked at Cecilia. I have been sitting at this table for 6 years, I said. You have never once asked me a direct question about my work? You have never once asked what I actually do or what I have built or what it has cost to build it? You have decided from the beginning that I was after something. And you have told that story. In this house, in your church, to your neighbors, to people I have never met. For 6 years, Cecilia's chin lifted. Her posture tightened. The performance of composure in the face of facts. I was protecting my son, she said. From what? I said, Silence. From a woman who was earning more than him before she met him, who built a career before she met him, who would have been exactly where she is today whether she had married him or not. More silence. I did not marry Kwame for his money, I said. I married him because he listens before he speaks. Because he means what he says. Because he is the kind of man who showed his wife a folder of 6 years of documentation and said, I am sorry she has made this necessary. I heard Kwame exhale beside me. That is why I married him, I said. Not his salary. Not his family's resources. Not anything this table could have offered me that I could not provide for myself. I stood up. I picked up the folder. I picked up the compensation sheet. I looked at Cortland one more time. I wish you well with the new project, I said, genuinely. I hope it holds. But it will hold on its own terms, not on mine. I looked at Cecilia. The folder stays with me, I said, but I left you something. On the table, where the folder had been. A single post-it note. Yellow. Small. My handwriting. It said, ask me a question next time. A real one. Then I walked out of the dining room, through the living room, through the front door, and I sat in the car and waited for Kwame. He came out 4 minutes later. He got in the passenger seat, because I always drove when we left his family's house. Because driving gave me something to do with my hands. He did not say anything for a full minute. Then he said, how long have you been planning that? Since item 38. I said. He almost smiled. The post-it was a nice touch, he said. I thought so, I said. I started the engine. We drove back to D.C. in a quiet that was not uncomfortable. The quiet of two people who have just done something that cannot be undone and are both certain it was right. 3 weeks passed. Nadine called. Not with family gossip. With something different. Her voice was careful. But underneath the carefulness, something that sounded like relief. Renata, she said. Mama wants to call you. I said. Okay. Not about Cortland, Nadine said. Not about money. She read the folder. Kwame sent her photos of the items. She asked him to. He sat with them for 2 days. I was quiet. She asked me. Nadine said, what she should say to you. What did you tell her? I said. I told her to say the true thing. Nadine said, whatever that is. Cecilia called on a Thursday evening. But she did not open warm. She did not use the careful architecture of a woman who has prepared a presentation. She opened with silence. 4 seconds of it. The silence of a woman who has read 44 items and is sitting with what they add up to. Then she said, Renata, I owe you an apology. A real one, not an explanation. Not a reason. An apology. I waited. I decided who you were before I knew you, she said. And I told other people what I had decided. And I did not check whether I was right. And I was not right. And I am sorry. 8 sentences. No qualifications. No, but I was worried. No, she needs to understand my perspective. 8 sentences. A real apology. It was not enough to undo 6 years. I will not pretend otherwise. An apology on a Thursday evening does not reach the church or the neighbors or the people who receive the story without being given the correction. But it was real. And Cecilia Morrison, in my experience, did not do real easily. Thank you, I said. We talked for 22 minutes. She asked me, for the first time, a direct question about my work, what the fund had invested in, what private equity actually did, how Carrie worked. I told her. She listened. The way Kwame listens. Before speaking. Meaning what she said when she said it. At the end of the call she said, will you come to Christmas? I said, yes. Not because 6 years disappears in 22 minutes. Because Kwame's family was Kwame's family. And Kwame was the man who had sat beside me at that dinner table and exhaled when I said the right thing. And he deserved a Christmas where his wife and his mother were in the same room, and it was not timed on a watch. The folder sits in the bottom drawer. 44 items, 6 years, 1 compensation sheet, 1 post-it note that I photographed before I left it on the table. Because documentation includes the things you leave behind. I do not open it often, but I kept it. Because my father told me at 12, the world will not remember what you did. Only what you can prove you did. And what I did, for 6 years, was show up. To the dinners. To the china and the centerpiece and the careful warmth of a woman who had decided the story. I showed up. And I did my work. And I built the fund and closed the deals and earned the carry. And I filed every item in a dark green folder in a bottom drawer. Not because I was waiting for the ask. Because I was raised to keep the records. And when the ask came, at minute 4 of a 6-minute speech, over the good china, the records were ready. They're always ready. Here on the family ledger. This is what we believe. Your value is not someone else's story about you. It is the documented record of what you have actually built, year by year, receipt by receipt. In the quiet hours when no one was watching, and no one was giving you credit, and no one was checking the numbers. Keep the receipts. Know the pattern. And when the moment comes, and it will come, let the documentation speak for itself. If someone has ever built a story about you without checking a single fact, and then came to you for money, drop it in the comments. Tell me your version, because I know you are out there. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Drop a comment. Hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.